It's a big week of new releases, including robotic sheep with giant swords, a creepy survival horror title, a drumming roguelite that seems to rock, Warcraft 4 in all but name, and more. So let's begin with Super Farming Boy, a fast-paced blend of a farming sim, action and puzzle game where you play as Super, a kid forced to farm by his nemesis Corporal in order to save his mum and friends. Instead of the slow, methodical pace of traditional farming games, everything here is driven by speed and combos, letting you transform into different tools like a shovel, watering can or pickaxe with the press of a button. Planting and harvesting is about sequencing actions together so that the crops trigger chain reactions across your fields, clearing space and defeating enemies and racking up big combo scores in the process. As you progress, new transformations, upgrades and stage layouts change how you approach each level, mixing in light combat and puzzle solving alongside the farming, having a variety of seasons that include volcanic and radioactive, along with pets to help in automation, a customizable home, boss fights as well as an awesome art style, so what's not to love? The Scouring is a high fantasy real-time strategy game made by developers who loved Warcraft but were bummed that Blizzard didn't seem to be making a new RTS and decided to take matters into their own hands. It is essentially orcs versus humans again, and is the full classic RTS experience where you build bases, manage resources, and command armies, also having hero units like in Warcraft 3 but more streamlined than the 4 playable factions. This will be an early access release and seems to be skirmish and multiplayer only at launch, with a single player campaign to be added at 1.0, but if you love the genre, this will probably be of interest. I love it when games let you play as the villain or monster, which is why the Dark Queen of Mortholme got my attention, flipping the script and letting you play as the final boss in a dark pixel art reverse boss rush title. Your throne room is invaded by a persistent hero, easily defeated at first, but they keep returning stronger each time, forcing you to defend yourself with increasingly powerful attacks from your ever-evolving arsenal. It seems like there's only one stage in the throne room where you have access to a variety of attacks, but the ever-respawning hero does give the game a bit more of a philosophical slant. You have to confront change and even question this unusual bond, shall we say, between villain and hero, with multiple endings based on your dialogue choices, letting you play as an immortal tyrant or perhaps to open a path towards empathy and ending the cycle. Being a short-form title that has a fascinating concept, holding up a mirror to every final boss you have ever fought, asking who, if anyone, grows in the end. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. Off is a surreal RPG cult classic from 2008 that is finally being remastered for Steam and Nintendo Switch with a fresh battle system and extra content in the form of new areas and hidden bosses. You play as the animated Better, a silent guardian tasked with purifying eerie zone-based worlds filled with specters under the guidance of a cryptic grinning cat known as the Judge. It has a turn-based combat system, but with active time battle, which forces you to make decisions quickly with an elemental system in play as well. Between battles, expect puzzles that play with logic, space, and surreal humor, and is one of those atypical RPGs like Undertale, Omori, or even Fear and Hunger, so find out what the hype is all about this week. Inkshade is a dark roguelite tactics game presented like a tabletop board game with wooden pieces where you lead a team of characters across a branching map aiming to find a mysterious realm known as the Abyss, but that is what unfolds on the board itself, with a larger meta layer that has you playing against a sinister game master. It is run-based where your party composition matters, since pieces have unique abilities such as shielding allies, striking from range, or slipping through enemy lines. you navigate procedurally generated maps, uncovering events, treasures, and battles that test your tactics skill, where positioning matters and resources are limited, so the enemy can quickly overwhelm an unprepared squad. Victories let you recruit new units, upgrade existing ones, or acquire relics that alter your strategy, with some encounters offering unusual choices that can reshape your run entirely. Of course, the game master character in the shadows does remind me of Inscription, so it is going for a similar vibe but with a different enough gameplay portion, and who knows, this might just become one of the biggest releases of the week. Other games begin with Bendy Lone Wolf, the next entry in the insanely popular Bendy series, but instead of first-person horror, this is a survival horror roguelite from an isometric camera angle, where you play as Boris, navigating the twisted rubber hose halls of a nightmarish animation studio. You explore procedurally generated corridors, scavenging supplies and crafting weapons, while dodging deadly traps and cartoonish monsters. Combat relies on timed attacks and clever trap use to fend off the grotesque dark puddle creatures, with a constant need to hide from the relentless ink demon whose heartbeat signals danger. Short term, your aim is to survive each run, gathering resources and uncovering secrets, while in the longer term, you have to master strategies to outwit the ink demon and to reveal the studio's dark truths, with the art style and colour palette certainly standing out. Devil's Drizzle is a 2D pixel art platformer where you play as a kid caught in a surreal storm, chasing after your lost cat Umbrella, who is also your friend, while trying to escape the grasp of the demonic Pazuzu. Levels are handcrafted and filled with platforms, hazards and hidden secrets, using a mythical amulet to uncover secrets in the dark. Movement is fast and responsive as you run, jump and dash to get to the end of the level, with each stage introducing new challenges from shifting weather effects to environmental puzzles. There are boss fights in this game, each with unique attack patterns and weaknesses to figure out, all wrapped up with a decent pixel art style and feels a little Celeste-like in terms of inspiration, with a narrative talking about tackling insecurities and uncovering the true meaning of friendship. We also have the long-awaited release of Dice Gambit, a turn-based roguelite tactics title that incorporates dice mechanics into the combat. You lead a customizable family of inquisitors in the city, battling chromatic monsters with dice rolls, while also navigating local politics as you forge bonds with other noble houses. Dice rolls determine every action and can be combined to unleash powerful attacks, with the ability to re-roll dice strategically, balancing risk and reward as you aim for the perfect turn. Between battles, you can unlock powerful abilities and powers, sending your characters to the academy to choose from over 200 of them, as well as improving their attributes, passives and stats. On the way to creating game-breaking builds, the family lineage system also stands out, where you can get characters to marry and have heirs, with the offspring inheriting powers and looks from their parents as you lead your family through time, having something in common with the Fire Emblem games, but of course with dice-based combat, also having a unique art style which makes this the hidden gem of the week. Dino Topia is a cozy top-down sandbox roguelite where you explore, farm, battle and build alongside dinosaur companions, gather resources, tame dinosaurs, and train them to work your land, farming, defending and growing your settlement together. Each creature has unique abilities and you can breed them to unlock stronger offspring with new powers, taking these with you to explore the jungle and to battle enemies and bosses. Experiment with farming systems where dinosaurs are able to help plant, water, fertilize and harvest crops essential for survival as you design, build and expand your base to create a prehistoric home that is uniquely yours. The game shines in how it blends creature collection, crafting, base building and action roguelite combat into one compelling gameplay loop where I'm curious about the overall structure, if there's a settlement destroyed game over state, or if the roguelite structure applies to just the combat scenarios. but if you love dinosaurs like me, this will be of interest. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Fallen City Brawl is releasing this week, an old school side-scrolling beat-em-up drenched in pixel art nostalgia, having things in common with the classic Streets of Rage franchise, and has been on my upcoming beat-em-up indie games videos for the longest of time. 4 gritty strangers are fighting their way through the city's underbelly, punching and kicking through 7 stages, facing goons and bosses, while using destructive combos, parries, air throws, grappling moves, and explosive riot super attacks. You can grab weapons mid-brawl, from bats and chainsaws to oil drums, but where some of the super attacks sees you summoning mercenaries that just straight up shoot enemies. But it is beat 'em up violence, which means damage to their health bar. Co-op looks like the ideal way to play this, but I hope single player will be balanced accordingly, and if you played a bunch of Streets of Rage, Final Fight, Double Dragon or Golden Axe growing up, then this might pique your interest. Jupiter Hell Classic is a demake of a remake of a roguelike unmake, which is a catchy way of saying that this developer made a Doom roguelike, a fan game that reimagined Doom as a turn-based title with permadeath, then remade it as Jupiter Hell to be legally distinct, with this being a pixel art version of that game which had 3D graphics. You step into the boots of a lone space marine, dropped into demon-infested Jupiter instead of Mars, armed with familiar weapons like shotguns, chain guns, railguns, and yes, even a chainsaw, using these to rip and tear through enemies. It's an old school turn-based roguelike, so there are no meta progression or carry over between runs as such. It is a more traditional kind of experience that shakes things up if you're more used to modern variants being lean, mean, and unforgiving. I've had my eye on Metavoidal for a little while since this is a pixel art action roguelite, so of course, but with a music theme where you play as a drummer trying to escape a corrupted eldritch metal band surrounded by zealous fans and distorted riffs. Instead of swinging swords or shooting lasers, you're using your drumsticks and the power of rock, collecting cursed music records in each level, mixing and matching to build a playlist of powers that transforms your instruments into lightning, fire, or holy light. You smash through hordes with your newfound musical abilities, leveling up your drumming skills between fights and battling bosses, pulling off what feels like sick drum solos. This isn't a rhythm title, so you don't have to worry about moving or attacking to the beat, instead just being music themed, which is cool, and seems to have a great soundtrack as well, being for fans of roguelites who want something a little more offbeat, which might just strike a chord. What is old is new again in Monster Mop Up, a cozy first-person cleaning sim where your job is to rescue mischievous ragamuffins and eliminate all traces of the mess before humans catch on. You play as a custodian working for the Ministry of Monster Concealment, equipped with a mop, trap, and other quirky gadgets to clean up stains, having to resort to other methods of cleaning like burning or flushing poop, while also chasing your fuzzy friends around before they get spotted. Yes, indeed, this is taking the modern iterations of games like Power Wash Simulator and combining it with Viscera Cleanup Detail, which OG indie game fans would have heard of, only much more cozy and colourful. The exaggerated mess that is first presented to you when you enter a new level might feel overwhelming, but grab a couple of friends and your tools and get to work, with a variety of upgrades to gear and new tools to unlock, which lets you clean smarter and faster. You can also expand and decorate your home base, turning your sanctuary into a cozy retreat for you and the ragamuffins, looking like light-hearted fun and might be a hit. Noble Legacy might look like it's from the developer of Medieval Dynasty or Sengoku Dynasty, but it is not, coming to us from another team, but is a similar kind of third-person medieval city-building, management and RPG title, where you return from war to reclaim and rebuild the land of Greenwood, overseeing its growth while walking among your people. You control the noble character directly, gathering resources, placing buildings, and managing production chains to keep your settlement thriving. Villagers have their own needs, skills, and morale, which will affect their productivity and loyalty, so part of your role is ensuring that they are fed, housed, and kept safe. As you expand, you construct farms, blacksmiths, taverns, and other essential structures balancing economic growth with the happiness of your people. Events and quests add variety, forcing you to adapt to changing circumstances, while your choices influence the long-term prosperity of your kingdom. But people do love games like this and could be huge. We also have the 1.0 release of Relic Hunter's Legend, a bit of an interesting timing with this since it comes to us from Brazilian developer Rogue Snail, who I first came across back in 2015 with Relic Hunters 0, a free game in this universe, who had moderate successes along the way and most recently released the roguelite ARPG Hell Clock, which has really taken off. So I don't know if this is done or if they are saying it's done to focus on the other game. This is a fast-paced top-down looter-shooter wrapped in RPG mechanics where you and up to 3 friends battle entities to get loot across procedurally generated worlds as you take on missions and get stronger on your quest to take down the tyrant Duke Duncan and his army. You pick from a cast of hunters, each with unique abilities and skill trees, customizable stats, gear slots, and a unique relic that defines your combat style. There's loot rarity, so think Diablo or Destiny, and different mission modes for plenty of variety, essentially feeling like a Diablo-style title but more as a twin-stick shooter. Missions scale with the number of players and seems to be well balanced with some amazing art as well, and does look like fun with friends, with price set to increase after August 14th, so pick it up early for a discount. Shrouded Aspect is a dark, Celtic-inspired tactical CRPG that sure looks like old-school titles set in a plague-ravaged medieval world where the god of death returns to unleash a deadly blight on the land. You lead a party of survivors through 32 branching scenarios, making tough calls on whom to trust, recruit, or leave behind. Combat is turn-based and grid-based, demanding clever use of positioning, terrain, and timing of attacks and abilities, with the constant threat of permadeath affecting every decision. Outside of battle, customize your heroes with evolving skills and gear, crafting a team that fits your strategy and playstyle. The story campaign is replayable with branching paths and permadeath, so it feels a little bit like Darkest Dungeon to me, and for some reason, will have multiplayer PvP support, where you can face off against your friends in head-to-head combat, but I do love the old school visuals in particular. SwooshCat is an adorable looking precision platformer where you guide the character through a charming but deadly world, having to platform and avoid spikes while taking enemies out along the way. You dash, slash, stab, roll, and ricochet off enemies and walls to move, attack, or uncover hidden paths in jungles and deserts, beginning, as most of these tend to be, rather simply with just the dash and strike, but gradually unfolds into more complex and fluid combos that will test your reflexes. Each level is a carefully designed playground of lethal traps and enemies, requiring you to master the movement in the game, although from the trailer, the screen shake does seem to be a little excessive. Still, if you love games like Celeste, or perhaps more accurately 10 Second Ninja, then this should be of interest. The latest in a long line of games attempting to teach you Japanese is Wagotabi: A Japanese Journey, an immersive educational RPG that frames language learning by having your character explore places inspired by real-life Japan. You start as a beginner with no Japanese knowledge, then explore handcrafted locations based on real prefectures, talking to the locals, taking on side missions, ordering food, and gradually unlocking and learning more about the language of hiragana, katakana, and kanji. The game flows logically since you learn language concepts as they appear in context, reinforced with something known as a spaced repetition system or SRS learning method, which should help. There are also minigames and a kanji dex with stroke order practice and grammar explanations, so you can catch them all, so to speak, and will serve as a handy reference. This is all presented with a wonderful, almost old school Pokemon-like overworld, so if you're interested in the language, this will be worth a play. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. We also have the 1.0 release of Dead Zone Rogue, a fast-paced sci-fi roguelite FPS set aboard a derelict space station overrun by hostile machines. You take on procedurally generated missions across multiple zones, scavenging for weapons, mods and gear, while battling enemies that range from swarming drones to heavily armed combat units. Combat is all about speed and adaptability, with over 30 weapon types that can be customized with elemental effects like ice, void or chain lightning to match your preferred playstyle. Between runs, invest in permanent upgrades, unlocking new abilities, improving your arsenal, and expanding build options for the future. The 1.0 release adds Zone 3, a fresh new environment with more than 20 additional enemy types, new mini-bosses, a massive end-of-zone boss fight, extra mission types and much more, also expanding on the lore and story, and is a must-play for shooter fans. Speaking of roguelite first-person shooters, a new release is Abysses, a self-styled brine punk title set in the flooded ruins of an ancient civilization, where you fight through shifting arenas filled with dangerous sea creatures and supernatural guardians. Each run takes you across a series of handcrafted rooms that are procedurally rearranged, keeping layouts unpredictable while ensuring memorable combat encounters. Movement is fast-paced and fluid, with dashes, double jumps, and quick weapon swaps, letting you stay mobile as enemies close in. You start with one of several distinct weapons, each with its own feel, and expand your arsenal during a run with powerful brine-fueled guns and melee options. Over 40 weapon mods and divine blessings can be combined to drastically alter your playstyle, whether you want high mobility, heavy firepower, or more elemental effects. Enemy variety is high, with dozens of unique foes and large boss encounters that demand both precise aim and quick thinking. The goal is to push as far as possible before being overwhelmed, gathering knowledge and skill to take you a little bit further each time, having one of the sickest themes and should be awesome. Another first-person title of interest is Supra World, but is not a roguelite first-person shooter, but rather a Metroidvania with puzzle and exploration elements, coming to us from the developer of the Supra Land games. This uses a miniature, handcrafted toy world as its location, where you play as an apprentice in the Solvers Guild tasked with saving a princess. Explore an interconnected world where the developers say that every object was hand-placed and serves a purpose, being part of either navigation, traversal or puzzle solving with no fillers or junk. In Metroidvania fashion, progress occurs when you find powerful new abilities which can be used to access new areas, but also have other purposes like being used in combat. This sequel is more open in design, letting you ignore the main quest if you so choose, and also new here is taking on solving detective cases where there are murderers in your midst. Still, if their other games are anything to go by, this should be awesome, but do note that it will be an early access release and will not be content complete. One of the most anticipated titles of the week is Whisper Molten Outbreak, an isometric co-op survival horror game set in 1998 on the fog-covered slopes of Mount Bissek, where a supernatural mist traps you and your team in a desperate fight to escape. Up to 4 players can choose from different survivor types, each with unique traits, having to work together to scavenge supplies, craft tools, and battle through swarms of infected creatures. In survival horror fashion, objectives range from finding key items to repairing equipment or securing escape routes, all while managing limited resources like ammunition and healing items. The fog constantly closes in, creating time pressure that forces you to balance exploration with survival, whether you stick close to your teammates or spread out to search. Combat mixes melee weapons and firearms, having to decide between conserving ammo and when to pull out the big guns, with some progression between sessions as well, but weirdly enough, early Steam reviews are in, mentioning that there's no way to save any progress, being session-based so to speak, which was one of the concerns I had when previewing this game, so perhaps wait for more information or check in on Steam forums and the developer's social media for updates on this. What did I tell you about pixel art action roguelites? One of the most stylish and best looking releases of the week is Ovis Loop. where you play as a robotic sheep wielding a sci-fi greatsword, fighting through a post-apocalyptic world overrun by cyber wolves, having intense combat, awesome animation and action, as well as a central mystery, and looks like my kind of game. Watch this video for more pixel art titles.